I'm Sakshi Srivastava on behalf of the team of LegalStix, extremely delighted to welcome you all in our first session of 2 days boot camp on learning how to enroll for domestic and foreign PhD courses. The PhD stands for the Doctor of Philosophy. It is the highest academic degree awarded by the universities and the educational institution in many countries around the world. It represents a significant level of the expertise and accomplishment in a particular field of study. Overall, a PhD is a significant achievement. Many of us want to pursue this degree, but not having the correct knowledge that how to do, what to do, where, what are the requirements, what is the procedure of enrollment. All this bother us a lot. So here our boot camp, which is an intensive and transformative program designed to equip the aspiring scholars from a diverse global backgrounds with the essential tools, knowledge, and the skills to thrive in the competitive world of doctoral studies. Some of us want to pursue the doctoral study from UK, France, US, from any other part of the world. So there is a unique challenges and opportunities that comes with the pursuing doctorate in a foreign setting. So our dedicated team is here to provide you the guidance, mentorship, and resources tailored to your needs with the experts. And today we have with us Ms. Trupti Panigrahi ma'am. Ma'am, she is a professor on leave from a Jindal Global Law School and PhD scholar at the Queen's Mary University of London to guide us on today's topic of the boot camp, that is how to enroll in foreign PhD courses. So I request all the aspirants to note down the requisite for your future references, and there will be the question answer round at the end of the session. So participants can write their questions in Q&A box or ask as well. Now I would like to invite our dignitary on the panel today, Trupti Panigrahi ma'am, to kindly illuminate us with her apprehension of today's topic.
Hi, hello everyone. I hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, perfect. Let me just adjust the okay, yeah. Now the settings are fine. Okay. So I hope everyone's doing well. I am here to talk about admissions in foreign PhD. But before I begin, do I have any questions to begin with? I would sort of then navigate through those questions, and this can be a total interactive session. If there is, if anyone would like to know how I began my PhD journey, because I feel PhD or taking admission in PhD is a very individualistic process. It really depends on who you are, what you want, where you are applying, and all of the other variables keep changing according to that. So, what my journey is going to be completely unique to me, and and anyone who wants to do a PhD will have a very different journey. Yet, every PhD scholar sort of faces some common challenges, which is, I think, the first one is whether PhD is something for me or not. So, what are your ideas or aims or goals with PhD? The beginning is from that. So I decided to do a PhD because I was very passionate about this one particular area of law that I wanted to research more on, and it came very naturally to me. So there wasn't any of course I'm an academic, and a PhD will definitely help me in my academic career, but I haven't ever, yeah, as of yet, seen this as a process to help me in my academic career. This is out of my pure passion for the topic that I am researching now, that I'm here. So your goals will determine where you want to do your PhD from. What are the, what are the outcomes that you would want out of your PhD? So I think that is the starting point. The next point would be, if you've decided, okay, this is my area of law, then you have to jot down on universities. I think the process in India and the process abroad is very different. So uh, what type of studies would you like to, because I believe, if I'm not wrong, in India there is an entrance exam, after which, you qualify your entrance exam, there is an interview, and then you are admitted for a PhD degree, and then there is 1 year of coursework wherein you are made to study certain compulsory subjects, appear for those exams, and the next 2 years then sort of are only dedicated for your reading, research, and writing, if that is my correct understanding. But I think in the UK, and I can only talk about the UK because that's where I am doing my PhD from, and that's where I always wanted to do my PhD from. So my research is very limited that way. I would not be able to tell much about any US degree or Australian degree, but I'll stick to UK and London in specific. So I think here, also this process will differ from college to college. In India it's much more standard, but here in every university there'll be certain differences. However, the first process remains the same, that you know what your topic is, and then you apply to a university through their portal. And this portal will, it's the application process is more like an LLM a master's degree application process. And they do have, so there's no time, there is a time limit, but it's not like 24 hours, so you have at least a few months to fill out that application form. And after filling out that form, in those forms there'll be questions like, what is your purpose for doing this PhD, why our university, what are, say, explain your proposal to us. So what you essentially work on during the process of application is that proposal. And I'll come to the proposal later. But after you apply and you send your proposal, if people are convinced that your topic is actually research worthy, which means your entire application is dependent on that proposal. So if you're able to convince everyone that okay, your topic is worthy, then they sort of offer you a candidature. And after that, there are many requisites to that also. For example, how many people would want to supervise your proposal, your research. So in Queen Mary, I know that at least two supervisors need to agree that they are willing to supervise uh, your research. Only then will you get an admission. And but sometimes these supervisors are willing to supervise, but they do not have the required number of vacancies for taking your research. So that might also act as a factor of rejection or acceptance. So all of these things come into picture. After you're admitted, of course, you can immediately, depending on which year you want to begin your PhD from, you can start your process. I will not be able to tell much about the PhD journey because I'm just beginning my PhD. But I do know that the first year we definitely have to attend some compulsory seminars, and through those seminars and workshops we need to keep refining and presenting our research. So this is a very there is a very voluntary nature to this. So there are no exams where we have to sit and study and write. We do have to, however, out of our own free will, passion, and our own drive, we need to sit with study groups. We need to discuss our topic. We need to hear other people discussing. There are plenty of lectures happening, plenty of workshops happening. So it's on us, it's on the candidate, how much do they want to take from whatever resources is available. And I think the availability of resources is abundance. So how you balance your time and what you do when you are attending a seminar is completely up to you. What you want to learn from the seminar is completely up to you. So what are the things that they're telling which is relevant to your research, and how you're going to sort of, what perspective did you hear that lecture or seminar from. All of that is very, again, very individual. So yeah, so I was talking about the PhD proposal. Now the proposal itself is a journey. I think it took me about a good 3 year to come up with a proposal which I think now I'm very confident about to start my research on. So it's not like you'll come up with a topic randomly. There are two ways of doing a PhD, of course. The one way is where you propose whatever topic you want to research on, and then you start your research like that. The other ones are these projects that run, and in the bigger projects you play a part as a PhD candidate. The topic is almost set for you, the theme is set for you. You're working within you're working with, and that entire group is researching on different aspects of that one theme, and you're just given one aspect. So both the ways are extremely, extremely how can I say, extremely efficient and extremely um, I'd say they're extremely well in giving you the experience of learning, of giving you the fun and joy of learning. But it totally depends on how you see and what you want from a PhD. If it's about a degree and you're interested in learning about a new theme which a group of people are working, and you're sort of willing to work in a group, I think the latter type of PhD is for you. But if you know that, okay, there's something I really want to learn on, and I do have a basic idea about what this is, and I want to dig in deep, then the former also works. So mostly PhD in the where there is a group involved, and you're researching on on one aspect of that entire theme. These sorts of projects are usually funded. So you really, when you apply, so you also have to convince that, okay, I deserve this funding and I deserve to be one of the candidates working in your group. When it's an individual project, fundings are limited. So you really need, now this is where the challenge comes. Along with proving to them that your research, you are a good candidate for PhD, you also have to prove to them that your topic is worth spending money on. It's not already a set topic. So you need to find what that topic is. You need to find a way to convince everyone who's reading your proposal, your thesis, that okay, this is something we would want to invest on. It's more like pitching for a startup, pitching for funding. So it's just like that. So your proposal needs to be like that. Sometimes what happens is, we do know, okay, there's a loophole in, let's say, law, and this is what I want to research on. But is it worth a 3 4 year research? What are the outcomes for the society in general? What benefit will the academia get in general? And is it only for your individual benefit, or giving you a PhD in that area will actually help in the growth and development of the world? All of those things do come into picture. So hence I say that it really took me about 2 to 3 years to refine the topic and come up with something that is worth telling, that is worth exploring and convincing, that okay, this really needs everyone's attention. So that's, I think that's the beginning. If there are any questions on what processes are involved, or any specific questions, then I would be willing to take them.
Yes, ma'am. What is the process for the applying to PhD programs or to the approaching the universities?
Okay, so the application is actually pretty simple. They Every university will have their own timelines, and if you go to their PhD pages, the website, they will say that okay, our applications open now, our applications open this month, or apply now, our applications are on rolling basis. So again, depending on which university you want to do your PhD from, you have to keep a tab on the timelines of that university, and then you have to keep checking, okay, when do the applications open. Now some universities will say you need to contact a supervisor before applying to us. If you already have somebody from our university agreeing to take up your project, or agreeing to at least get your application, only then will we consider taking an application from you. Many universities do not have that prerequisite, so you apply irrespective of you knowing somebody in the university or not. and then it's sort of pitched to all the professors that have the vacancy, and then whoever is willing to take you takes you. So in Queen Mary, this wasn't a requirement that for me, that it wasn't a requirement for me to approach somebody beforehand and pitch my work to them. But it does help when you write to a lot of professors that, okay, I am a scholar from India, or I'm an academic from India, I'm a student from India, and I do want to do my PhD, and I see that this is your field of research as well. So the research for your PhD is not merely research of what university or what topic do I want to research on. It is also a whole research on who will be a perfect supervisor for me. So who will I do my PhD under? What merit do they have? Can they give me inputs? Can they help me refine my work? Can they help me reach a stage where I'm actually contributing to the development and growth of the world, the society, academia, research? Do they have that kind of knowledge, interest, in supporting my work? So all of these things also come into picture. So how do you do that research? Once you know that, okay, this is my larger theme, you look for scholars working in that area. You visit every university's profile, and then you see which faculty is willing to take. Every faculty will have their bio page, where you will see how many publications they've made in your area, or if there is any mutual area of interest between you and the person you're looking at for as a supervisor. So all of these things will come into picture. After doing that research, you will jot down on certain number of faculty members from every university that you would want to write to. Then you write to them saying, I'm willing to do my PhD, in your university under your guidance. This is my topic, and without disclosing too much, because of course ideas aren't copyrighted, without disclosing too much, you do give them a sense of what you're trying to do. And then if they're really interested, they will write to you, they will ask you more questions, and if they do have that vacancy, they will then say, okay, I'm willing to supervise your research, you can apply. So again, this is, like I said, depends on what university you're applying to. If the university has that requisite, then um, you engage in this process. If not, then also I recommend that you engage in this process, because otherwise applying to a university where there is nobody who's actually interested in your research is a waste of time. Because you will apply, but nobody will sort of agree to supervise that late at a later stage. So that isn't very helpful. You know that the outcome will be that my PhD application will be rejected. But I think even when there is no requirement for you to approach a faculty member in advance, before applying for your PhD, it certainly gives the faculty member a chance to look out for your application in case you apply, in case you approach them in advance. So let's say I have written to a professor saying, okay, professor, I think I'm willing to do my research in this area, would you be interested? This is what I intend to do, and because your expertise also lies in this area, I would want you to be my supervisor. Just an email like that, and some conversation through an email will make them aware of the fact that, okay, an application like that is coming, and I'll keep my eyes open. In whenever that is floated, I will accept it. So you're basically just ringing the bell, telling them that, okay, I'm here and I'm willing to apply. So these are the two ways of applying, and the process then remains the same. I think, if you're aware of the process of application for an LLM, it's just like that. You have a portal, you fill in your details, you fill in your academic interests, your educational background, your work background, all of those details, and then you just send your proposal, upload your proposal. Many universities do have guidelines for proposals as well, that, okay, it has to be these many words, it has to have these sections, it has to give out the references, bibliography, all of that. So many universities have that, many universities just want a proposal for a specific word limit. So that is as simple as that. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. And as per my knowledge, the recommendation letter plays a huge role while application for the universities. So
Yeah.
can you tell some special mentioning in the recommendation letter which will be more appreciable by the universities?
Yes. So recommendation letter again, I think many people confuse it thinking that if I get a recommendation from somebody who's doing excellently well in their field, I will, my application or my recommendation will have more weightage, which is a myth. You should actually get a recommendation from somebody who knows you and who knows your work inside out, who knows you as not just a person, but who knows about your caliber in taking up some work. So, anyone who's reading your application and the reference letter will see what is your relation with that person. So, let's take a very common example. I think if I take an LLM reference, it'll be more helpful. If we're applying for an LLM and in an undergraduate course, we're taking references from a professor who's sort of merely just, given us a conference or a seminar lecture, but doesn't really know us personally. But that professor is, a big professor. They've done their doctorate. They're doing excellently well in their research, and we take reference from them versus we take a reference from, let's say, a junior level academic who's probably taught us more courses, who's maybe interacted with us more, who's supervised us, who's supervised us for these little research papers maybe, or who has helped, who has worked with us in some project, who's trained us for some competition. Or and the more the interaction, the more the authentic the reference looks. So that's one. The second thing is what will make the reference look nice. The reference will only look nice if it's coming as an original voice of the person who's writing that reference. And of course, if they do have any unique experience about you to share in that reference. For example, when I used to write references for my students, I would definitely write the very little class interactions that usually are insignificant but are very unique to that particular student. Maybe that student, maybe I asked a question and that was the only student who answered it. And maybe that student always helps having these class discussions by giving significant inputs. So these are the things that you highlight the learning interest, the learning abilities of a student through these classroom experiences. So those are not only authentic, but those will actually give a picture of who you are as a person to the person writing that reference, and basically tell your story from a different angle. So that is all about references. They're very important. I completely agree that in your application, the more authentic, the more original your references are, they do give a sense to the person who's reading your application that okay, this is actually the caliber of the student. Sometimes our CV might look very fancy because we draft it, we're marketing it. But if somebody else is also able to market you uh, authentically, just by highlighting who you are in real, I think that's great.
Thank you, ma'am. One more question, ma'am.
Yeah.
Means we are going outside the country,
Mhm.
and language means communication is one big problem. So
Yes.
the exams like IELTS and
Mhm.
TOEFL, TOEFL.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what significance of that help us to build help us to study there means establish there.
um okay,
I
okay,
think
I do get your
I cannot
question.
name my question.
No, no, of course I do understand the significance of these English exams, but we also need to understand before asking this question that again, language is something that's very important, and it is also very different for every country. Let's say you want to do a PhD from Germany. You do have to know German to survive in that country also. So sometimes what happens is language is not a prerequisite. They ask you to come and take their language classes. So alongside your degree, you're also learning their language and then communicating and surviving. So as far as survival is concerned, I think with these Google translators and the devices that help us translate, it is with technology, it has become much easier. But technology hasn't really caught up, in the sense that we can't, if we do not know the language well, we might not be able to understand the lecture itself, and then it becomes difficult. So these exams do hold great significance. I gave my English exam for my master's degree, so that was long back. For my PhD, I didn't need to give an English exam because I already had a degree from the UK for my master's. So that just tells them that, okay, this person already knows English. And many universities also have a waiver for this exam. Let's say your undergrad or your postgrad is from a place which is majorly English speaking. India, though, isn't considered to be majorly English speaking. But then, if your university, your undergrad or postgrad university, writes that we have imparted our degree in English language, and the student has taken exam in English language, then there is no requirement for you to take the English exam. But this waiver, not every university will provide. It again depends on the requirements of a particular university you're applying to. English is not very is it's not a challenge for Indians. We have like most of us have grown up in English medium schools, and we watch English shows. We write exams in English. We usually communicate in English, so that is easier for us. But if we do intend to apply to countries that do not speak English, be it Germany, be it Italy. So these places do require you to have a good hold of the language. You're on mute, I think, Sakshi.
Ma'am,
Yes.
also, can you suggest some suitable countries for Indians to do the PhD from the particular countries? Can you suggest some?
Okay. I will not recommend countries because, again, like I said, this is a very individual process, but I will sort of tell you what to look out for when you are, you know, considering different countries. The first thing is which country is the most suitable for the project or the research that you are trying to do. So let's say I am doing my research in intellectual property, so I should be really convinced that, okay, this country or this particular university will be able to give me many resources in the field of intellectual property, right? And let's say if my work is on colonial history, then it's ideal for me to come to London and do my research, right? It will not make any sense if I do my research when it comes to colonial history from, say, USA or or Italy or Japan for that matter. So it makes much more sense for me to do my research in England, because I will have more resources, their libraries, the British Library, the archives. I will have access to those things. So that is one consideration. Second is, if it's a full time PhD, you're going to live in that country for about 3 to 4 years. So you have to take into consideration the weather, the general vibe, energy of that country, what is the culture of that country, and is it like something that you want to indulge in that culture? Are you willing to sort of embrace that culture? Are you willing to learn more about that culture? All of these things will come in picture. Then comes budgeting. Will you be able to afford a living in that country? Then will come your goal of settling in that country maybe later. So settlement is, of course, it's one of the last considerations. But yes, budget, culture, weather, and your area, your research area, all of those things should play a significant role in deciding which country you would want to do your PhD from.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, as you said, the cost and thing. Can you tell us more about the how we can attain the scholarship, how we can manage the cost or get the secure the funding for our PhD programs?
Right. Again, funding is even more individualistic than the PhD application itself. The funding journey for me was was difficult, but it took me like good research to get a full funding. So like I said, the 3 years I've been actually focusing on not just developing a topic that's worthy of research, but also looking at where I can get funding from, because for me it was not possible to do a 3 4 year of study in the UK. So I think I had decided that if I don't get a funding, I'll probably do my PhD from India, because there's no other way. But funding, there are many sources for funding, but it is highly competitive, which means for that funding, everyone around the world is applying. So and it's not a so PhD fundings are even more difficult than masters funding. Masters funding do have like a huge cohort of students, but PhD has very limited people. Not many people do PhD. So you might see that in your class, you will have, when you're doing your master study, you will have like a full class of 60 people, and who are taking the degree. But in a PhD, you will probably be like 10 students who are also doing research in different areas. So if we are allowed to say that you're the only student in your class, and then also there is very limited funding. So how do you take that funding? Now there are, for PhDs, in my experience, generic fundings are not available. Your topic will determine whether you can get funding from a source or not. So there will be agencies, there will be organizations, there will be NGOs that fund a particular type of research or a particular type of project. So if, let's say, your project falls within arts and humanities and social science, or culture, heritage, or law and legal studies, only a particular type of organization which is interested in your research will fund your research. So again, this is, it all boils down to you convincing the funding agency or organization that, see, this is your area of interest and this is what I am researching on, so I deserve the money.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, also there are some universities which means their PhD degree will not recognize in India. So, is there are some universities you can tell about?
I think you can definitely, I mean, one can definitely go to the UGC site maybe to see if the doctorate degree is recognized or not. So they will definitely have a list of those universities. I personally have been very confused with what is recognized, what isn't. Like I said, I'm doing my PhD purely out of passion, not for any academic advancement. I'm sure an academic advancement is an outcome of my PhD degree, but because it is just something that I passionately want to do, I have taken this journey. So I did not really pay much heed to whether the degree is recognized or not. My only focus was, okay, this is where I can do my research, this is where I'll get resources, this is where people are interested to know what my work is. So that's how I proceeded. Also, there's another thing about funding that I did not mention in my previous response, is that sometimes it's easy to secure partial funding, and mostly what happens is, in PhD, you might or might not get your funding in the first year, but after you complete your first year and you've sort of substantially gained, you've substantially completed like your coursework stage, then you can apply for any PhD again in your second year to the same sources that you probably would have applied in your first year. Sometimes what happens is they do not see the worth in the first year, maybe, or maybe they do not have more vacancies or more people to fund, but in the second year they might consider you. So you can apply for these scholarships, these fundings every year of your at every stage of your PhD. Now every it'll again depend on which agency or which organization you're applying to. They might have rolling basis funding applications, they might have annual funding applications. So keep a tab on which are the organizations that have an interest in your research and are funding organizations, and then you can apply to them accordingly. Now, another thing is there are external fundings and internal fundings. There are government fundings and university fundings. There are partnerships. So, the resources or the sources of funding can be any. You also need not apply to only one agency, one organization of funding. You can take partial funding from this, then another significant amount of your funding from another organization. So again, but then those there are conditions to that. If they are giving you money, they might or might not want you to take money from anyone else. So again, every agency, every organization will differ in their terms and conditions. So it all comes down to your research, how much. Many university websites do have good information on where you can secure your funding from. Usually also look out for government schemes in the country that you're applying to. I'm sure India also has a lot of government schemes. Similarly, many countries, governments do fund PhD. I think mine is also funded by the UK government, the AHRC, in partnership with LAHP. So you can read more about it. I think in your website, I have provided that information, so you can sort of read it. So yes, so if you look out for these external or internal fundings, information will always be there in the university website that you're applying to. Okay, the university is giving you this much, let's say a tuition fee waiver maybe, or along with the tuition fee waiver, a living expense. So it all depends on what is available, how much funding is available to the university, and how much can they disburse. So that is one. The second thing is, you can always do part-time jobs. With PhD, I'm sure it will become a bit difficult. But I mean, come on, if it's a matter of survival, then we all can do part-time jobs. There's something in the UK called stint. A lot, and UK is a very student friendly place. It's a land of universities. Many people come here to study. So part time and temporary jobs are available in abundance. And there is this concept of stint as well, which is, I think, stint jobs is again very common in London, where what happens is you say that, okay, I'm available for 2 hours. Is there anything that I can do? Then they match you with some place that might need a volunteer for 2 hours. And then they have like basic pay per hour for every individual who's working. So I think it's about £10, if I'm not wrong. It's £10 per hour. So depending on how much hours you can work extra, you earn that much. Let's say you work for 8 hours a week, you earn £80, and £80 is, I think, it's good to sort of support you in your living. So that's that. But then, of course, your visa will have certain conditions. Your visa will say you cannot work for more than 20 hours in a week during your term time. So you cannot be saying that, okay, acha, aaj this week is completely free for me, so I will, put in 48 hours of work in this entire week. That is not allowed by the visa conditions. So all of that you have to sort of manage and budget accordingly.
Ma'am, is there any coursework, and what is the duration of that coursework? What is can you believe the structure of the coursework?
Yeah. So, like I said, unlike India, we do not have examinations for any coursework that we take, but it's more about attending. So it's the coursework is seminars and lectures. So and it's compulsory for every full-time student to attend these seminars and lectures. And attendance is not just mere attendance is participation. So you attend them, you incorporate what they tell you in that workshop or seminar into your project, and then you present it in that seminar or in that conference. So I think Queen Mary's structure is that if I still haven't started with my coursework, my induction is next week, so I will know in a few days. And of course, I will keep updating on my LinkedIn, and then I'm sort of also developing a page on Instagram to journal about my PhD journey. To give everybody an idea of what it is like to do a PhD from the UK. So definitely, I can share that later. But as far as I know, there are compulsory seminars and lectures and workshops that we have to attend. And in that attendance, we learn whatever we learn. We adopt whatever we think is the best for our project. In Of course, our supervisor will definitely guide us. Okay, they will say, okay, this is the thing that you can incorporate, this is how you can incorporate it. And then there are regular presentations. So in those presentations, and that's a process of refining your work. They will sort of tell you, okay, this is a research method that you need to learn, and when you apply that research method, your project becomes more refined and more efficient. So it's all about that. And that I think runs for the first year. The second and the third year is usually more about your writing. But I think there are, again, many opportunities for workshops, conferences, publications. So by the time you complete your PhD, you have already created a reputation, a niche, a knowledge base for what you're doing. So that is the structure that I'm aware of as of now. But I will, after my inductions, know much better.
Okay, ma'am. What is the expected duration of a PhD program?
Uh, so there is, of course, the full-time PhD program is for 3 years, and you have to complete it in 3 years, and you can sort of seek extensions if it's really required. 4 year, 5 year, 6 year, depending on, again, terms and conditions of the university. You might have to pay extra as and when you extend, and nobody wants that. And everybody wants to, 3 years is, after, again, it's a long duration. It's like a whole undergrad degree only. So it's a long time. But I and 3 years is a minimum that it usually takes, but I do know of people who complete it in the second year also. Sometimes people do have, they're very focused. Sometimes they have worked for, before enrolling in PhD, they have already completed significant research. So they do end up writing. Their speed of writing is very fast, so they can complete chapters. So a PhD actually is a work of about 95,000 to a 1 lakh word document. It's more like a book that you're writing. So mostly it will depend on your research and your speed of writing. And whether you're writing in the correct direction. It's also like, okay, I've written an entire chapter. Maybe that chapter is 5,000, 10,000 words in itself, but it's not relevant to what conclusion I was aiming at. Or maybe it's taking me in a completely different direction, so maybe I have to rework that. So it all comes down to what suits you, what speed suits you, whether you've done your research properly or not. That's why usually the first year is spent fully focused on research, so that you do not make any mistakes while you're writing.
Okay, ma'am. What are the opportunities after completing the PhD in abroad? Means what we can do after that.
um yeah. So a PhD degree will, of course, give you an edge over somebody who doesn't have a PhD when it comes to academia. PhD makes you eligible for applying for assistant professorship positions. It makes you, eligible for any research positions. It's so PhD is not a qualifying degree per se. Just say for undergrad in law, only a bachelor of law works for you to work as an advocate. But in academia, PhD is important. But if your aim and goal is not academia, then PhD is just an added layer to your professional bio or professional journey. So let's say there is an application that comes to me where one person has a PhD and one person doesn't have a PhD. I will obviously prefer a PhD. PhD only becomes a qualifying criteria when it is an academic job. So basically, it tells the world that you know how to research. You have created your own niche, because again, PhD is not something, is not a research that somebody else has done already. It's either an advancement to what somebody has done, or a re-looking at somebody else's work with your own perspective, but it's something that's completely unique and new, unlike a master's degree where you're learning the same things, writing the same exams, and advancing your individual growth. PhD is, along with your individual growth, you're also contributing to the world at large. So that gives any recruiter a sense that you're like a leader, you're somebody who can produce something for the world, something meaningful for the world. So that comes with a PhD. And of course, any university job, any teaching positions, PhD is considered to be an eligibility criteria.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, one is the most motivating factor, money. So, how much we can earn after doing PhD in abroad in INR?
In INR? It's a very funny question, because in academia, it's like, okay, it's like asking, okay, if I do law, how much can I earn? Being an advocate completely depends on what kind of advocate you are, what kind of cases you're taking, whether you're doing the right things or not. So again, mostly people who do PhD are academics, and in academia, there is no end. For example, let's say I'm a PhD. I hold a PhD and I work for a university. That university maybe has some grants for anyone who takes up more projects or who writes and publishes more. So let's say if I publish uh, 10 articles in a year, and they have like, okay, as an academic, we will give you this much money per article, and I'm able to write 10 articles, I'll get that much money. If I'm not able to write any article, I'll not get any money. And again, it's usually research money, research grants, your salary as an academic, all of those things again, and these are variables depending on what university you're working in.
Ma'am, there is one question.
Yeah.
Let me read it out for you. If one is looking to do PhD from India,
Hmm.
what are some good colleges that she must target?
Okay.
Uh,
I will refrain from answering this because I think you have a session on India tomorrow. So I will give the chance to the other expert to answer that. But again, India may, maybe there's a standard practice of uh, applying for PhD through an entrance exam. So that is not the practice abroad. So when you're applying abroad, you can definitely look at the college, look at what the college is doing well in. Is this the area of research that the college really focuses in, the university really focuses in, and then you apply to that university. So you match your interest with the interest of the university and with the reputation of the university, and then you apply. So in India, the process might be a little different, but the expert that's coming tomorrow might be able to tell you better.
so, any other questions? If anybody have any questions, please put it in chat box. I think there is no other questions.
Okay,
So
I do see a question. Somebody said, ma'am, can we practice as an advocate along with doing a PhD? Um, if it's a part-time PhD that you're doing, then sure, you can practice as an advocate. But practice where? Let's say you are doing your PhD from UK, because, and I only ask this because we're discussing foreign PhDs. So if you're doing your part-time from UK, you have to again go back to India to practice, because a law degree, for a law degree you do need to law degree is very region specific. You need to qualify as an advocate in the area or in the region that you're practicing in. You can't be practicing as an advocate in the UK without qualifying their bar exam and doing a PhD side by side. But there are part-time PhDs. Usually, many people prefer part-time PhD so that they can, work alongside. And a part-time PhD will though take you longer, 6 7 years to complete a part-time PhD. So you can definitely work on that. I see another question. Can you tell few names of the scholarship that we can apply abroad for funding? Yes. Uh, I can tell you the ones that I applied to. Every university will have different internal fundings. In the UK, there are many research councils that the UK government, gives money to, and these councils then fund projects. So I was funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. This particular council has a partnership with 8 universities in London, and then they fund projects for projects in the area of art, culture, heritage, social studies, law and legal studies, and and the like. So this is their theme. Because my project fell in their theme, I got funding, and of course, because it was convincing enough. Similarly, there will be funding for there will be a separate research council for funding a medical project. Maybe there'll be a separate research council for funding a project on technology. So it again depends on what your area of research is, and according to that the funding agency will change. um, the next is there
what
are
are the procedures
huh,
for applying for the Ivy League universities? Is it the same?
Ivy League is again US, and like I said in the beginning, my research is very focused on UK, so I will not be able to tell much on US or any other country. Um, but okay, but I do see another question, like there are DARTs, DAAD scholarship. Okay, that is, or UNSW. Again, DAAD is for Germany. UNSW, I'm not too sure which one is it for, which country is it for. But every country will have again different scholarships. So and then there are also graduate, teaching assistantships. So let's say you are a PhD student, they will fund you if you agree to teach in their university as well. So again, that's again a very competitive process. A colleague of mine is also doing his PhD in law from the same university as me, but through the graduate teaching assistantship route. So that is again depending on availability and what the university is willing to disperse. Depending on that, the funding will differ. I can, very well answer these questions if it is not a generic question but a very particular question. If let's say if you ask me, okay, what are the fundings available for Queen Mary University of London to do a PhD in law? Then I can tell you, okay, then there are six fundings that are available, and this will suit you. This might not suit you. What is your project on? Then I will be able to tell you, okay, for example, Queen Mary has this internal funding called Herschel Smith Scholarship. So I did get that funding as well, but I chose to, sort of stick with AHRC funding. But Herschel Smith is only given to a scholar who's doing their research in intellectual property law. So again, if you're doing your research in, let's say, dispute resolution, you might have a completely different scholarship. But again, while I might be able to tell you where to look, but I might not be able to tell you what are the agencies, because that's not where my research is at. So yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Are we supposed to join some other degree before applying for the PhD, or we can directly get the admission? There are countries which ask for the particular graduate degree from the country itself.
Um, there are universities that prefer that you have done your masters in the same university, as in the same university that you're applying to for your PhD. So if I'm not wrong, I think Harvard is one of those universities. Yale is one of those universities that prefers. I'm not saying that's a strong, bar or disbar to applying for PhD, but they do prefer people who've done their masters because they're more aware of the system, the research. But I think for the greater number of universities, it's not a requirement. Mostly the requirement is that you should have a master's degree from somewhere, and then they give you equivalents. So let's say, if to be eligible to apply for a PhD in Queen Mary, you need a master's degree, and you also need to have this much score in your master's degree, maybe an equivalent to what the UK sees as top scores. So all of that is required. Sometimes, if this is not a requirement, if you scoring well is not a requirement for your PhD admission, it might be a requirement to apply for scholarships. So your master's degree, or the degree that you've done right before your PhD, does come into picture in the admission process, because the better you've done in your previous degree, the more chances of you getting selected for a PhD and a scholarship.
Okay, ma'am, there is one other question. What
Yeah.
are the scholarship available for the research in environment law?
Again, you have to look at universities. You have to see, okay, this is their funding page, and then you have to see, okay, environment law, maybe there are named scholarship uh, by the name of legendary environmentalists that do or climate change activists, or people who are pro environment, their researches on environment. Then those scholars will have named scholarships. So you have to really go to a university website to check that. It'll be listed along with all the generic funding agencies and NGOs, and then there'll be, in bracket, they'll write, okay, this is only for environment research. So that's how you get to understand the fields. The number of fields are vast. So like I said, my research was only limited to intellectual property or culture heritage, what my theme of research was. So I will not be able to tell about environment, but yes, this is how you go about it. You go to a university website, you check their PhD in law page, and then there'll be a tab on funding. You click on that tab, then they will have listed fundings which are available to students.
One more
Yeah.
question that how to choose the supervisor and how to
Hmm.
join down the particular university. Like, how do we infer which university will provide us? Like, what should be the criteria to shortlist the university
Hmm.
specified for our interests?
Okay. So the criteria to choose a supervisor is definitely, the first thing that you do is check their academic interests. Check what they have worked in previously. Every good university abroad will have a page for every faculty member. In that page, you will see what are the publications that the faculty has done, that the professor has done, what sort of conferences the professor has participated in, organized, what are the subjects that they teach. And then you will know, okay, this is maybe a person who might be interested in supervising my work. Then you write to them asking for their interest. Sometimes what happens is they are very interested in that area, but they are currently focusing on something else, which probably has piqued their interest, which is different from what they have been doing. Or maybe they are that they are people who might not have vacancies in the first place. or maybe they're not just willing to take up your project. So it's always good to first list people down, list the names down according to their areas of interest, then write to them to understand their interest in your project. So it's a two-step process. That's how you shortlist a supervisor. um, and then when it comes to universities, I think uh, you again go to whatever university you think is going to be beneficial for your research. How do you do that? Go to QS ranking page, maybe check, okay, which universities are doing good in law. Open every university's website. You decide, do you want to only look at the top 5, do you want to look at top 10, do you want to look at top 15? You decide, and then you open every university's website, you check out their PhD in law page, and then from that page you will get an idea of what is their course structure, what are their fees, what are the funding available for a PhD from a university which is probably located in out London, UK, whatever. So then you make a table or you make an Excel sheet, and then you see which one will suit you more. Sometimes what happens is, okay, this is a university that has more funding opportunities, so I will then apply to this. These are the criteria that you should have in mind when you're shortlisting a university. You might say, okay, this university has a tie up with an organization that I want to work in future, so maybe I will choose this university. So again, depends on your individual goals.
Another question is from Sahil. Ma'am, if I want to pursue my career only in India, then will it make a difference as to whether I have done my PhD from India or from a good foreign university?
um it might not make as much difference as long as your work is convincing, your work is what makes a difference is who your supervisor is and what is the quality of your work. Ultimately your work, unlike your exams uh, in master's level, where nobody knows what answers you've written and who has scored you, what marks you've gotten, in a PhD your work will come out to the public. Your work will be published. You might have, during the tenure of your PhD, you might have published many research papers, and by the end of your PhD you end up writing something like a book. So your entire research is in your hand. So now if you really want a career advancement through your PhD, you really take that work with you. So you wear your PhD on your sleeve when you go to any recruitment places. So then they see that, they see your work directly, and then they decide. So no matter where you're doing it from, if you've done it correctly, I think that makes all the difference.
Ma'am, one more question from
Hmm.
Sandhya, that
Hmm.
what is the best way to propose our topic for area of research to the professor, and are we supposed to write a full-fledged research proposal to them?
Um, Not in the first email. I would not suggest. The best way to approach is to link their experience with the research that you're proposing. You know, that is the best way to approach a supervisor, because why else will they be interested in your research, right? You will tell them, okay, listen, you have done this before. I am proposing to do this before. So maybe you bring in your experience and we can together work on a project that might help the world. So that is how it works. But in the first email you just mention to them that these are your themes or your ideas. In fact, what I did was I just wrote one line. Okay, I want to do my PhD in, or I want to, learn more in the field of intellectual property and in cultural heritage or Indian culture and heritage. What will be a good time to discuss this with you? Looking at your profile, I do understand that you might be interested in this because you have worked in XYZ area. So I will be really grateful if you can give me some time to discuss my ideas with you, and then that's how you start a conversation. A proper research proposal will definitely be needed at the time of applying for a PhD, because you will have to upload it. And developing a proper research proposal, for that, and a very important process is talking to many academics, talking to peer groups, and gaining their perspective and refining your research. Because sometimes what happens is, when we have thought about a topic for a very long time, we have gained knowledge above a layman, and then we're not able to explain it to somebody who might not have read as much as we have. And we tend to assume that, Array, this is basic knowledge, this is not something I should, tell this person. For example, if I'm talking to somebody who's also a copyright expert, I might not, want to explain to them what are moral rights, and I can directly start my conversation on a different tangent. But if I'm talking to somebody who might not know copyrights, I will have to explain the basics to them and then start my conversation. So it really depends on, who you're talking to. Let's say you are looking at a supervisor who you want to supervise only one aspect of your project. You do need to explain the basics of the other aspects of your project. For example, I chose a supervisor who is a legend, an expert in the field of intellectual property, but they might not know the intricacies of Indian culture and heritage. So I will explain Indian culture and heritage to them, and then say that, okay, this is how I want to link it with intellectual property. Are you willing to supervise? That is how you approach it. Yeah.
And she continued her question and asked if she want to apply for the teaching in that particular university during the course of PhD. Is
Hmm.
it possible, and how can she do that?
Depends on vacancies. Again, completely. So let's say if you are in a university abroad and they do have teaching assistantship positions, they will take you. They do prefer their PhD students. For example, my supervisor offered me a teaching assistantship position in the university itself, so I will now be assisting my supervisor in teaching the modules that she teaches to the master students. So again, depending on the availability or the requirement, you might be offered that position, or there might be an open call where you can apply.
So is there any other question? Please put it on the box. um, I think, ma'am, everyone is still.
Mhm.
Um, so thank you so much, ma'am, for answering all the question and sharing such a good knowledge with us. Surely the aspirants got enlightened. As we come near to end to our boot camp session, I, Sakshi Srivastava, on the behalf of the team of LegalStix, extend a warm and heartily thanks to you, ma'am, for giving the excellent coverage to the topic and enlightening us. Well, we all feel blessed to listen you. And I would also like to thanks all the participants for being a patient audience and putting such a good questions to you, which helped other participants too.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining the session. Do not forget to join the tomorrow session on 6 p.m. 6 p.m. The link will be shared accordingly. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It was wonderful discussing this, and I'm also open to discussing it in more detail. If you can write to me on LinkedIn, and also follow my journey on Instagram in case you're really interested to know what happens, during a PhD in the UK. So I'm all here to help you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye
Thank you,
bye.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.